The universe is an ocean that does not speak. It stretches in every direction, filled with galaxies, stars, and worlds, yet nothing answers the human call. Modern science has learned to measure the distance between galaxies, the age of stars, and the temperature of space. But in the face of silence, no number brings comfort. When we look at the night sky, what we see is a tapestry of light, stitched together by ancient explosions. But what we hear is emptiness, a void that seems absolute, yet hides an inaudible music made of radiation, gravity, and time. Every star shining in the firmament is so far away that its light takes millions or billions of years to reach us. This means that when we gaze at the sky, we are not seeing the present. We are witnessing a distant past, a portrait of what no longer exists. The galaxies we observe today may already have died. The cosmos, in this sense, is a cemetery of light, and its silence is not absence, but echo. Humanity contemplates this ancient spectacle, trying to decipher a message, yet all it receives in return is a stillness that borders on the divine. That silence has always disturbed us. Since the first philosophers lifted their eyes to the heavens, the question about the meaning of the void has haunted human thought. At first, silence was interpreted as the voice of the gods, an invisible presence manifesting itself through the absence of sound. With the progress of science, the mystery did not diminish. On the contrary, the silence became even deeper, because now we know that the universe is larger than we ever imagined, and yet no voice echoes among the stars. The size of the cosmos is almost inconceivable. In our galaxy alone, there are hundreds of billions of stars, and each may have its own planets. It is estimated that there are trillions of galaxies across the observable universe. If each of them is a sea of suns, then the cosmos is an infinite archipelago of possibilities. And yet, the more we look, the more we perceive loneliness. No transmissions, no artificial lights, no clear evidence of distant civilizations. The universe is vast, but it does not respond. For human beings, accustomed to seeking meaning in everything, cosmic silence is a provocation. It challenges not only science, but also philosophy, theology, and the very notion of purpose. If the universe is infinite, why does it seem empty? If life is possible here, why has it not flourished elsewhere? These questions run through modern thought and form the core of what we now call the Fermi Paradox, the contradiction between the high mathematical probability of life beyond Earth and the complete absence of observable evidence. But before there was paradox, there was wonder. The wonder of realizing that the universe has no haste, no voice, and no witnesses but us. The silence of the stars has been the same for billions of years. Even when supernovas explode and black holes devour entire worlds, sound does not travel. In the vacuum, there is no medium for noise. The death of a star may be the most violent event in the cosmos, and yet it unfolds in perfect silence. That physical stillness has become a metaphysical symbol, a metaphor for the human condition itself. We live amidst grandeur, yet without response. When radio telescopes began to scan the sky, scientists hoped to find something, a signal, an artificial sequence, an organized noise revealing intelligence. Decades passed, and the result was always the same. The background sound of the universe, a constant ancient frequency born from the dawn of space-time itself. We discovered that the universe does speak, but in a language we do not understand. Its tongue is cosmic radiation, a memory of the instant when everything began. This primordial noise, known as the cosmic microwave background radiation, is the echo of the Big Bang, the thermal remnant left when the universe was still young. It fills all of space, but carries no messages, only history. It is the sound of creation, transformed into silence by time. Thus, what we call cosmic silence is not the absence of sound, but the absence of perceptible meaning. The universe speaks constantly, but perhaps not to us. There is also a psychological aspect to this silence. Humanity projects onto the cosmos its desire for companionship. Since ancient myths, we have searched the skies for the presence of something greater: gods, spirits, civilizations. The emptiness of space is a mirror in which we see reflected our own need for meaning. That is why the silence of God, or the silence of the stars, hurts more than physical emptiness. It questions our importance. And perhaps what frightens us most is not the immensity, but cosmic indifference. The idea that the universe exists without needing to be seen. From a scientific point of view, the silence can be explained. The distances between stars are so vast that any communication would be almost impossible. Even traveling at the speed of light, a message would take thousands of years to cross a handful of galaxies. On cosmic scales, time and distance form an impenetrable barrier. But the mystery persists because the human mind is not content with calculation. We want to hear something, a signal, a response, a proof that we are not alone. Perhaps silence is the natural state of the universe. Perhaps life is rare, fragile, and fleeting. Perhaps we are speaking alone in an empty theater. Or perhaps silence is only the pause before a greater discovery. Every starry night reminds us that we are small yet conscious, and that consciousness is, in itself, a miracle. The universe may seem mute, but within it there is a being that listens, and that act of listening is the beginning of all science. Cosmic silence, therefore, is not an absence to be conquered, but a presence to be understood. It invites us to patient observation, to humility, and to the constant search for meaning. Before it, humankind becomes both scientist and poet, explorer and believer, because in the end, every gaze toward the sky is a prayer, an attempt to hear what the infinite does not say. And it is in that silence that the question that changes everything is born. If the universe is so vast, where is everybody? In the middle of the 20th century, the world lived between fear and hope. Humanity had discovered the power of the atom, split the nucleus of matter, and created energy capable of destroying cities or illuminating entire nations. Science was advancing at an unprecedented speed. The skies, once the realm of gods and dreams, began to be seen as a conquerable territory. The airplane, radar, and rocket had transformed the impossible into a matter of time. And it was in this atmosphere of technological euphoria and philosophical unease that one of the most profound questions in history was born. Where is everybody? The author of that question was Enrico Fermi, an Italian physicist of sharp and curious mind, known as much for his genius as for his simplicity. He helped lay the foundations of modern physics, participated in the creation of the first nuclear reactor, and was one of the central scientists of the Manhattan Project, responsible for developing the first atomic weapons. Fermi believed deeply in reason and mathematics, yet he had the habit of questioning everything that seemed too obvious. His mind was like a radar tuned to the absurd, and it was precisely an absurdity that intrigued him during an ordinary lunch, on an ordinary day, in the summer of 1950. That day, at the Los Alamos laboratory, amid casual conversation and metal trays, Fermi chatted with colleagues about the news of the time. They spoke of reports of unidentified flying objects, of the possibility of life on other planets, and of the early steps of modern astronomy in the search for worlds beyond the solar system. The mood was one of curiosity, but also of skepticism. Then, in the middle of the conversation, Fermi stopped, looked into the distance, and with his soft accent asked something that silenced the table. Where is everybody? The question was simple, but devastating. It contained within it the entire contradiction between scientific optimism and observable reality. If the universe is ancient, vast, and full of stars like the sun, and if many of those stars must have planets like Earth, why do we see no clear signs of other civilizations? Fermi did not ask out of irony, he asked because he could do the math, and the math did not add up. According to the estimates of the time, the galaxy should host millions of civilizations. Even if only a small fraction of them had developed technology, the age of the universe would have been more than enough for them to expand, colonize neighboring stars, and eventually leave traces, radio waves, artifacts, artificial lights, or megastructures. Yet up to that point nothing had been detected. No signal, no evidence, no trace. The universe remained in absolute silence. This discrepancy between what mathematics predicted and what reality revealed became known as the Fermi Paradox. The impact of the question was immediate. For many scientists, it sounded almost like a philosophical provocation. Others treated it as a statistical challenge, a problem of probability and scale. But for most, the feeling was one of discomfort, the idea that perhaps we were alone, or that the entire universe might exist without witnesses other than us. From that moment on, cosmic silence ceased to be merely a poetic curiosity and became a real scientific problem. Fermi began to explore the implications of his own question. If civilizations were common, space should be full of signals. Even if only one had learned to travel among the stars, just a few million years, a blink of an eye in cosmic terms, would be enough to colonize the entire galaxy. And if that had not happened, something must be wrong. Either life is extremely rare, or civilizations are fragile and do not survive long enough, or there exists some universal barrier that prevents communication among them. Any of these hypotheses was equally unsettling. Fermi's colleagues began to debate. Some suggested that perhaps civilizations destroy themselves before achieving interstellar travel. Others imagined that maybe they simply do not wish to communicate. Fermi listened in silence, performing mental calculations. He knew that if the cosmos follows natural laws, there should be nothing special about Earth. The same physics, the same chemistry, the same biology, everything should repeat itself across countless worlds. And yet, there was no sign of repetition. The silence, therefore, had to mean something. Over time, the paradox gained shape and name. Scientists refined it, tested it with new observations, and built increasingly sophisticated hypotheses. It became a starting point for all modern astrobiology. Fermi's question transformed into a philosophical and mathematical axis. If the universe is so ancient and fertile, and if life is a natural consequence of matter, why does only Earth seem to speak? The strength of the paradox lies in its simplicity. It does not demand faith, only logic. The same equations that describe planetary orbits and stellar evolution indicate that there are billions of potentially habitable worlds. Yet human experience insists on showing the opposite. This conflict between reason and observation is what makes the Fermi paradox so disturbing. It forces humanity to look into the cosmic mirror and admit that perhaps silence itself is an answer, or a warning. The following decades tried to solve the question. Theories emerged about the rarity of life, about evolutionary filters, about inevitable catastrophes that prevent the rise of lasting civilizations. Other, more optimistic ideas suggested that perhaps life is abundant but discreet, silent by choice, not by absence. In both cases, the starting point remains the same. That table in Los Alamos, that moment of pause between a sip of coffee and an equation, when Fermi looked into the infinite and realized that the universe, though full of light, had no voice. Today, more than 70 years later, the Fermi paradox remains alive. It guides observatories, space missions, and philosophical reflections. It is the kind of question that never ages, because it has no definitive answer. It echoes among scientists, theologians, and poets, uniting them all in the same wonder. The silence of the stars, after all, is not just a scientific mystery, it is an existential experience. Fermi's legacy lies not only in physics or nuclear energy, it lies in that simple and powerful gesture of questioning the obvious. His question continues to open paths in the darkness, reminding us that the search for company in the universe is also a search for ourselves. Every time we point an antenna toward the sky, we repeat the same curiosity that once moved him. We want to understand why the universe seems quiet, and whether someone somewhere is trying to listen back. And so, between equations and silences, the Fermi paradox marked the beginning of a new era. The era in which humanity began to see itself not as the center of the cosmos, but as an exception, or a prelude. For if the universe is old enough to have harbored civilizations, Fermi's question continues to resonate like a distant echo. Where are the others? The universe is far too ancient for what we are. It has existed for more than 13 billion years, while our species has barely crossed the last 200,000. This disproportion of time is so immense that any attempt at comparison dissolves into wonder. Human life is a recent spark in a fire that began long before. And perhaps that is one of the reasons for the great silence. Cosmic time is so vast that entire civilizations may have arisen, flourished, and vanished long before we ever opened our eyes. The clock of the cosmos does not measure days, months, or years. It measures eras, aeons, and collapses. Science has learned to decipher the age of the universe by analyzing its oldest light, the cosmic microwave background radiation, the visible echo of the birth of space and time. This radiation shows that everything began with an unimaginably dense and hot brilliance, followed by an expansion that still continues. But in the first 300,000 years after the beginning, there were no stars, no planets, no complex atoms. There was only darkness and wandering particles. The original silence was not emptiness. It was the interval between chaos and order. The first stars were born when the universe was about 400 million years old. They were great factories of elements, true nuclear furnaces that created carbon, oxygen, iron, and all the components necessary for life. Those stars died in gigantic explosions, scattering their remains across space. From their ashes, new stars and planets were formed. Life, therefore, is a byproduct of stellar death. Everything that exists within our bodies, from the calcium in our bones to the iron in our blood, was forged in the hearts of stars that no longer exist. The universe had to mature to allow life. Billions of years had to pass for the essential elements to accumulate. Earth appeared about 4.5 billion years ago, when the universe was already old, more than 9 billion years into its existence. This means that even if life had been possible from the beginning, there was a long time of preparation, a slow cosmic chemistry in evolution. During that time, it is possible that entire worlds formed and disappeared without ever harboring anything conscious. But when life finally appears, it is fragile and brief. The scale of biology is minimal compared to the cosmic scale. While stars live for billions of years, a technological civilization may last only a few thousand or less. In universal terms, that is the blink of an eye. It is possible that dozens, perhaps hundreds of civilizations have existed before ours, but that all vanished before we could notice them. Time, therefore, is not merely a measure. It is a filter. It separates those who arise from those who endure. This temporal asymmetry is the heart of the problem. Even if life is common, it is unlikely that two civilizations coincide in time. The universe is old and vast, and the probability that two intelligent species exist simultaneously is minute. We may be searching for the signals of a civilization that disappeared millions of years ago, whose transmissions have already dissolved into background noise, and if others exist, perhaps they have not yet arisen. In that case, we are just one of the many voices the universe produces at different moments, voices that never hear one another. Cosmic silence may simply be the result of temporal misalignment. While we look toward the stars in search of company, time erases the traces of those who came before. Even if ancient civilizations had left behind vestiges, satellites, cities, artifacts, the universe itself would have taken care of destroying them. Cosmic erosion is relentless. Cosmic rays impacts radiation, and the motion of galaxies dismantle every structure over millions of years. Eternity in the cosmos is synonymous with forgetting. When we think about our own history, we realize how recent intelligence truly is. All of human civilization, from the invention of writing to the digital age, spans less than 10,000 years, an imperceptible interval on an astronomical scale. The modern brain, capable of contemplating the universe, has existed for only a fleeting instant on the cosmic clock. Consciousness is a late exception, a flicker within an abyss of darkness and silence. And it is this brevity that may explain why the universe has not yet responded. It is too old for us, or we are too young for it. Earth took billions of years to develop stable conditions and sustain complex life. The universe, on the other hand, will continue to exist for trillions of years after our departure. In terms of time, humanity is a fleeting visitor. Even if our species lasted millions of years, it would still be insignificant beside the age of the stars. And if intelligence is as rare as it is brief, perhaps the cosmos is dotted with small moments of awareness, separated by vast deserts of time, sparks that shine and vanish, never meeting one another. The comparison between geological time and biological time makes this clear. While mountains rise and fall in cycles spanning hundreds of millions of years, human history fits into a single layer of sediment. The universe observes us with the patience of the ages, and we observe it with the impatience of seconds. This mismatch of scales is what turns the Fermi Paradox into a cosmic melancholy. Perhaps we are not alone, merely out of sync. And if the universe truly consists of isolated existences, separated by abysses of time, then the silence of the stars is merely the sound of a distant past. What we hear is not absence, but delay. The background cosmic noise may be the fossilized chorus of civilizations long gone, mingled with the radiation of creation itself. The ancient universe carries the dead voices of everything that has ever existed, but they are so distant that they have been lost in expansion. In the end, the Fermi Paradox may not be a matter of distance but of time. Life is not impossible, only unlikely to coexist. Our existence is a coincidence within an infinite clock, and that makes the silence understandable but no less poetic. Because if the universe is 13 billion years old and we have only just awakened, then we are the first to listen, not the last. Time is the true filter of the cosmos. It creates and destroys, separates and silences. And yet, within its slowness, there exists a human urgency, the will to understand. Perhaps the secret of cosmic silence lies not in the absence of other voices, but in the brevity of those that emerge. The universe is old, and intelligence is brief. But as long as there is someone left to ask, the cosmos remains alive, because the act of questioning is, in itself, the only answer that time has not yet erased. Mathematics seems to be a universal language. Through it, we describe the motion of planets, the fusion of stars, and the invisible rhythm of the cosmos. If nature is coherent, then equations should be enough to reveal the logic of existence. And indeed, when we look at the numbers, everything suggests that life should be abundant. There are so many stars, so many planets, and so much time available that the silence of the stars should not exist. But it does. And that is where the numbers stop making sense. The statistical vastness of the universe is almost impossible to grasp. It is estimated that there are more than 200 billion galaxies, each containing hundreds of billions of stars. That means there are around 10 followed by 24 zeros of stars scattered throughout the observable space. If only a small fraction of them have rocky planets in habitable zones, the number would still be unimaginable. Our own Milky Way galaxy contains more than 100 billion stars and tens of billions of potentially Earth-like worlds. With so many possible places, life should be inevitable. And yet, no evidence of it has ever been found. In an attempt to give shape to this contradiction, the astronomer Frank Drake created in 1961 a formula that became known as the Drake equation. His goal was not to solve the mystery, but to organize it. The equation proposed multiplying a series of factors, such as the rate of star formation, the fraction that have planets, the number of habitable worlds, the probability of life emerging, and the average duration of technological civilizations, to estimate how many of them could be active now in our galaxy. It was an exercise in reasoning, not in precision, an attempt to translate wonder into numbers. On paper, the equation is simple, but each variable is an abyss. The more we try to fill them with data, the more we realize how immense our ignorance truly is. We know with relative certainty how many stars are born each year in the Milky Way, but we do not know how many planets actually have stable conditions. And more profoundly, we do not know how improbable the emergence of life is. After all, we have only one example: Earth. Every calculation begins from that single point. It is like trying to define the diversity of an ocean by looking at a single drop. That is the heart of the problem. The Drake equation depends less on measurement and more on assumption. Some scientists estimate that the probability of life emerging on a habitable planet is extremely high. Others say it could be so low that it may have happened only once in the entire history of the cosmos. And when the gap between one hypothesis and another is so vast, mathematics ceases to be an answer and becomes hope. The equation becomes a mirror. What we see in it reflects more what we desire than what we know. Even with its uncertainties, many optimistic calculations have been made. If only 1 in every 100,000 stars hosted a planet with intelligent life, there would still be millions of civilizations in the Milky Way alone. That would mean space should be filled with transmissions, lights and artificial noise traveling between the stars. Yet what we receive is only cosmic static, the ancient sound of the universe's birth, constant and indifferent. No pattern, no repetition, no signal that cannot be explained by natural phenomena. The Fermi Paradox rises once more. The numbers say we are not alone, but reality insists on leaving us solitary. Science tries to explain this mismatch in many ways. Perhaps we are listening to the wrong spectrum, tuning into frequencies no one uses. Perhaps interstellar communication is unfeasible, and advanced civilizations communicate in ways we cannot yet comprehend. Or perhaps silence is not absence, but caution, a collective choice of the cosmos not to be heard. Still, none of these hypotheses resolve the unease. Mathematics seems to scream presence, while the universe whispers absence. The problem is that numbers do not perceive context. They pile up coldly, ignoring the complexity of reality. The probability of life may be high, but the probability of contact may be nearly zero. Distance, time, and biological fragility cancel the chances of dialogue. It is like throwing billions of bottles into the ocean and realizing that the sea is so vast that none ever reach another. The calculation of abundance is overwhelming, but the calculation of encounter is tragic. Another crucial point is the sampling problem. All modern astrobiology is built upon a single example of success: ourselves. This creates a dangerous statistical illusion. Life on Earth may seem common only because it is the only kind we know, and when the entire universe is studied through a single case, any generalization becomes an act of faith. The Drake equation, in that sense, is almost a scientific prayer, a rational way of saying there must be someone out there. But perhaps the answer lies in the very error of scale. Humanity thinks in millions, but the universe thinks in trillions. When numbers are that immense, even the improbable becomes inevitable, and yet invisible. Life may be scattered, but so diluted in space and time that each civilization becomes an island. The probabilities remain valid, but the result never manifests as expected. Mathematics does not lie. It simply does not guarantee witnesses. This is the paradox of abundance. The vaster the cosmos, the greater the silence. If there were only a few dozen stars, the absence of life would be natural. But in a universe with trillions of worlds, the lack of any signal becomes almost unbearable. Science answers with patience. The human mind answers with restlessness. The Drake equation transforms then from a scientific tool into a philosophical reflection. It reminds us that knowing how to count is not the same as knowing how to understand. Perhaps the mistake lies in expecting the universe to behave logically according to our standards. Equations are human. The cosmos is not. When we multiply numbers and obtain hope, we forget that the universe has no obligation to be comprehensible. It simply is. And the silence of the stars may not be a problem to be solved, but a natural consequence of vastness. Even so, the numbers persist. They are the compass of those who search, the beacon of those who listen. Because even when they make no sense, they point toward an inevitable truth. If there are so many worlds and so much time and so much matter, then the void cannot be complete. Perhaps we have not yet learned to hear the right music, or we are trapped within too narrow a frequency of reality. Mathematics says the universe is fertile. Experience says it is silent. And between those two voices, humanity continues trying to understand what calculation cannot explain. Perhaps the numbers are not wrong, only incomplete. What is missing is not quantity, but comprehension, and that is why the next step does not lie in probability, but in the physics of space itself. Understanding why, even if there are other voices, their sound may never reach us. The universe is too vast for sound, and more than that, it is too vast for any answer. Even if other civilizations exist among the stars, we may never hear them, not for lack of will or technology, but because of an unbreakable barrier, the very fabric of space-time. Distance, combined with the limit imposed by the speed of light, turns the cosmos into a gigantic isolation chamber, where every world lives inside its own luminous cell, separated by abysses that no message can cross in time. To understand this limitation, we must first grasp what distance really means on a cosmic scale. When we say a star is nearby, like Alpha Centauri, the closest to the Sun, we are speaking of something more than 4 light-years away. That means light, the fastest phenomenon in the universe, traveling at nearly 300,000 kilometers per second, takes over 4 years to leave there and reach us. In other words, when we look at Alpha Centauri, we are seeing it as it was 4 years ago. If we sent a message today, it would arrive only in the year 2029, and if a reply were sent immediately, we would receive it only in 2033. This is the fastest possible dialogue with our nearest neighbor, a conversation that travels at the speed of light, yet is still far too slow for any living exchange. Now imagine what that means on larger scales. The most distant galaxies are billions of light-years away. The light that reaches our telescopes today left those regions when the universe was still young. when Earth did not yet exist. In other words, everything we see is the past. The universe we observe is not the universe as it is the universe as it was. We live inside an ancient, silent photograph where each star is a luminous memory of a time that no longer exists. This delay turns any attempt at communication into a cosmic tragedy. Even if a distant civilization sent out signals 100,000 years ago, it is possible that those signals are still crossing space while their senders have long vanished. Likewise, our own signals, which began leaking from Earth with the first radio transmissions just over a century ago, have reached a radius of only 100 light-years, a microscopic grain compared to the size of the galaxy. If anyone is listening, they likely do not even know we exist. Space, therefore, is not merely emptiness. It is a physical medium governed by relentless laws. The speed of light, considered the ultimate limit of nature, is not just a technological barrier. It is an ontological boundary. Nothing can surpass it. Not information, not matter, not thought. This means that space and time are woven together in such a way that to see is always to see the past, and to hear is always to hear echoes that may no longer have a source. Every star in the sky is a delayed letter from an era that has already gone. This limitation creates what cosmologists call the observable universe, the bubble of space from which we can receive light since the beginning of time. Everything beyond that horizon is, for us, invisible and unreachable. As the universe expands, this limit grows as well, but never fast enough to encompass the whole. There are regions of the cosmos already receding from us faster than light, which means their signals will never reach us. They are literally beyond perception. It is as if the universe had amputated parts of our experience, regions eternally silent. Even within this observable bubble, the scale of distance is absurd. If we were to shrink the Milky Way to the size of South America, the Sun would be a speck of dust, and Earth would be invisible to the naked eye. The nearest stars would lie kilometers away from that speck, and the neighboring galaxies would be hundreds of thousands of kilometers beyond. No human signal, no spacecraft, no conceivable technology can traverse such distances in any useful amount of time. Space is not merely vast. It is practically infinite to any civilization bound by known physics. There is also the problem of simultaneity. Even if two civilizations exist in the same galaxy, it is unlikely that they live during the same cosmic period. One may have flourished and vanished millions of years before the other was born. When one sends a message, the other does not yet exist. When the other begins to listen, the first has already turned to dust. Time, in that sense, is as cruel as space. It dissolves every attempt at encounter. The universe is an echo chamber where voices cross but never meet. Cosmic solitude, therefore, is not merely emotional, it is physical. The laws of space-time enforce isolation. We are prisoners of our own light, confined within the bubble of what we can see and hear. We may imagine other minds, but never touch them. Every inhabited planet, if others exist, would be a lost island in an archipelago of silence. The vastness that should unite instead divides, and the more the universe expands, the more irreversible that separation becomes. Entire galaxies are receding from us at increasing speeds due to what is called dark energy. Over the course of trillions of years, the cosmos will become so stretched that even the light from the nearest galaxies will fade beyond the horizon. There will come a time when the night sky will be completely black, and no star but the sun will be visible. The universe will become a cold desert, with no visible past and no shared future. Even today we are already witnessing the first signs of this isolation. The most distant galaxies are receding so fast that their light stretches into invisibility, lost in the distant infrared. What we call cosmic silence is, in part, an effect of expansion. The universe is not merely quiet, it is retreating, and that retreat is the true abyss between human longing and physical reality. When we gaze at the sky, we see beauty, but we also see time. Every point of light is a delayed message. The light from Betelgeuse, for instance, takes over 600 years to reach us. It may already have exploded, yet we still see it shine. The same is true for countless other stars. The visible universe is a graveyard of luminous ghosts. To look at it is to look into history, not the present. And perhaps that is the secret of silence. We are not hearing because we are listening to the past. We are not seeing because we are watching what once was. Cosmic solitude is not punishment. It is a natural consequence of the laws that govern us. Within those laws, time and distance form the perfect pair of forgetfulness. The Fermi Paradox thus gains a new layer. It is not enough for life to exist. It must also be near, simultaneous, and active to be detected. The immensity of the universe destroys that coincidence. The speed of light, so constant and elegant, becomes the wall that separates us from all others. And that is why, perhaps, silence is not absence. It is delay, a delay of ages, one we may never overcome. But the search goes on. We continue to send signals, to listen to the sky, to imagine replies. We know the universe is too vast to be truly mute, and that distance is merely another challenge to human curiosity. And if one day the echo comes, we may not recognize its origin. Because in the cosmos, every voice arrives too late. There is a hypothesis among astrobiologists that does not deny the Fermi Paradox. It makes it inevitable. It is known as the rare Earth hypothesis. The idea that, although the universe is full of planets, the conditions that made life possible here are so specific, so delicately balanced, that they may never have been repeated anywhere else. This hypothesis does not rely on mysticism, but on science. And what it reveals is a chain of coincidences so precise that Earth's existence seems like a statistical improbability of cosmic proportions. It all begins with temperature. Earth lies in what is called the habitable zone, not so close to the sun that its oceans would boil, nor so far that they would freeze. This interval is narrow and fragile, depending not only on distance, but also on the type of star, atmospheric composition, and orbital stability. Liquid water, essential for the biochemistry we know, exists only within this precise balance. A small deviation, and nothing we recognize would be possible. Planets slightly closer to their stars, like Venus, become furnaces. Others, like Mars, freeze into oblivion. Earth occupies a mathematically improbable point, a thin line between fire and ice. But thermal balance is only the beginning. Life, as we know it, also requires protection. Earth possesses a powerful magnetic field, generated by its rotating metallic core. This invisible shield deflects deadly particles from the sun and interstellar space. Without it, radiation would have sterilized the surface billions of years ago. Mars, which lost its magnetic field too early, saw its atmosphere stripped away by the solar wind, and with it perhaps any chance of lasting life. Earth's magnetism is a physical detail, but without it, there would be no story. Another crucial element is the Cartesian moonlet, formed probably after a colossal collision between the young Earth and a Mars-sized body. It stabilized the planet's axis of rotation. Without this stabilization, Earth's tilt would wobble chaotically, producing violent and unpredictable climate changes. Seasons, biological cycles, and climatic predictability all depend on this constancy. The moon, silent and distant, is a natural stabilizer, a gravitational anchor that keeps the planet from spinning into chaos. Within the same system, two giant gas planets, Jupiter and Saturn, play another vital role. Their colossal masses act as gravitational shields, deflecting or capturing most of the comets and asteroids that could strike Earth. Without these distant guardians, the planet's geological history would have been interrupted countless times by catastrophic impacts. The balance of the solar system is not just an orbital arrangement, but a delicate interplay of forces that kept life possible here, while thousands of worlds were destroyed in silence. The chemical composition of Earth is also a rare accident. Carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus combined in exact proportions to form complex and stable molecules. The iron in the core generated heat and a magnetic field. Silicon and aluminum formed a solid, light crust. Sulfur, copper, and zinc fueled biological reactions. Every element played a role, and even a small variation in that mixture would have altered the planet's destiny. Life did not arise from an abundance of possibilities, but from the coincidence of nearly impossible factors. Time was also an unlikely ally. It took billions of years of relative stability for evolution to run its course. During that interval, the planet endured catastrophes, but none powerful enough to erase all life. Mass extinctions reshaped ecosystems, yet always left openings for rebirth. It is as if the planet itself had been tuned to endure, as though chance had found a narrow path between chaos and continuity. And chance indeed was the great sculptor. Cosmic collisions, orbital shifts, meteor impacts, and climatic variations shaped the history of life like a blind artist at work. Each event could have destroyed what was to come, and yet life persisted. It is possible that on other worlds, the same processes occurred but in slightly different sequences, yielding sterile outcomes. Life, in that sense, is less a destiny and more a cosmic coincidence. If we consider pure probability, each of these conditions, ideal temperature, liquid water, magnetic field, stable atmosphere, stabilizing moon, protective giants, and favorable chemistry, is rare. The multiplication of these rarities makes the combination nearly impossible. The universe may contain trillions of planets, but if the probability of such coincidence is 1 in a trillion, Earth would already be a statistical miracle. And if that is true, cosmic silence ceases to be a mystery and becomes a natural consequence. We hear no one because perhaps there is no one else. This hypothesis does not deny life elsewhere, but suggests it may be simple, microscopic, and transient. Microorganisms might be common, but intelligence could be the exception. Consciousness requires stability, time, and luck, ingredients that rarely coincide. That is why the more we study the universe, the lonelier Earth seems. It is a paradox. The vaster the cosmos, the more evident our rarity becomes. Yet this rarity is no reason for despair, but for reverence. Human consciousness is the most improbable product in the history of the universe, an emergent phenomenon, born on an ordinary planet orbiting an ordinary star, yet capable of contemplating the infinite. We are perhaps the only form of matter able to wonder about itself, and that ability, fragile as it is living proof that the improbable has happened. If life is rare, then the silence of the stars is the natural sound of the cosmos. The absence of voices is not a mystery, but a statistic. Solitude is not punishment, but reflection of uniqueness. And in that solitude, the universe reveals itself not as a desert, but as a mirror. For to understand how unique we are is also to understand how deeply we belong. Rarity, in that sense, is the purest form of beauty, the proof that even amid the impossible, the universe found a way to hear itself through us. Perhaps the silence of the stars is not the silence of absence, but the silence of difference. Perhaps the universe is teeming with life, just in forms we cannot perceive. This hypothesis, known among astrobiologists as the idea of invisible life, suggests that life might be common but inaccessible to our senses, our technology, and above all to our definition of what it means to be alive. If life is a natural phenomenon rather than a singular event, it could have emerged many times, in countless forms, under conditions we fail to recognize. That would mean the universe might be vibrating with activity, even if it seems mute to us. Modern science carries an original bias. It searches for what it already knows. When we look for life beyond Earth, we seek molecules of carbon, oxygen, methane, and water. But that is only a reflection of what we know to exist here. If life evolved differently elsewhere, our instruments might be blind to it. There could be alternative biochemistries, forms of life that do not depend on water as a solvent, that do not use carbon as a structural base, or that do not rely on light for energy. This possibility changes everything, because it expands the concept of life beyond the terrestrial model. Some scientists suggest that silicon, abundant throughout the universe, could replace carbon as a molecular foundation. Silicon forms stable chains similar to carbon's and could give rise to organisms capable of surviving in extreme temperatures, perhaps on volcanic worlds or within cold stars. Others propose that ammonia could replace water in frozen environments, such as the icy moons of the solar system. There are even bolder theories that speak of life made of plasma, energy, or quantum structures that leave no chemical trace. If any of these possibilities are true, then we are surrounded by life, but life that does not speak our chemical language. Within our own solar system, there are places that defy the old idea of sterility. Jupiter's moon, Europa, hides an underground ocean beneath kilometers of ice. This ocean is warmed by tidal forces, creating hydrothermal vents similar to those that, on Earth, sustain colonies of microorganisms in the deep sea. Something similar occurs on Trelice, Enceladus, a moon of Saturn that ejects jets of vapor and organic compounds from an internal ocean. There is also Titan P, covered with lakes of liquid methane, where complex chemical reactions might generate an exotic biochemistry completely unlike our own. Each of these worlds is a natural laboratory, a reminder that life may flourish without ever resembling ours. Earth itself offers an even stronger argument, the extremophiles. These are organisms that thrive where nothing else survives, bacteria resistant to lethal radiation, microbes that feed on sulfur inside volcanoes, creatures that endure near absolute zero temperatures or live without oxygen. Some microorganisms withstand crushing pressures in the ocean depths. Others inhabit acidic lakes. A few can even survive the vacuum of space. If life can adapt to such extremes here, why could it not exist elsewhere, under conditions perhaps more common than our own? This diversity suggests that what we call ideal conditions may be nothing more than a narrow slice of reality. Carbon and water are, for us, the fundamental building blocks, yet they might be just one among countless possible combinations. Life could exist as a different chemistry, invisible to our instruments, or even on scales that escape our perception. Microorganisms might dwell in the clouds of Venus, feeding on sulfuric acid, or float in the upper layers of Jupiter, living within dense, hot atmospheres, or perhaps thrive inside Pluto's frozen rocks, warmed only by radioactive decay. There is also the possibility that life is not made of dense matter like ours. Some theorists speculate about forms of life based on electromagnetic fields or self-organizing patterns of energy, entities without a physical body, yet capable of organization and the replication of information. Although this sounds abstract, the human brain itself is a network of organized electrical impulses, which makes this idea less absurd than it appears. Perhaps what we call life must be redefined to include structures that we cannot see, yet that still think, perceive, and evolve. The greatest obstacle, however, is scientific anthropocentrism. We search for life that looks like us, that breathes oxygen, drinks water, and emits radio signals. But the universe is under no obligation to repeat terrestrial biology. The signals may already be in front of us, unrecognized. We might detect strange phenomena, fluctuations of light, chemical emissions, bursts of energy, and classify them as noise, when in truth they are manifestations of another form of life. This conceptual blindness is what many scientists call unrecognized life. On Earth, this concept finds unsettling echoes. In 2010, a group of researchers announced the discovery of a bacterium capable of using arsenic instead of phosphorus, one of the 6 elements considered essential to known biology. Although the finding was questioned, it raised an important possibility. Perhaps Earth itself hosts alternative life forms, coexisting with us but invisible because they interact differently with the environment. This hypothesis became known as the shadow biosphere, a parallel unseen biology living on the edges of what we can detect. If something similar exists elsewhere, our current search is insufficient. We are looking for mirrors of ourselves in a cosmos that may have no faces. It is like trying to listen to a symphony using only your eyes. The cosmic silence may simply be the result of this sensory limitation, not the absence of sound, but the absence of understanding. And when we consider this possibility, the Fermi Paradox takes on a new meaning. Perhaps life is not rare but untranslatable. There may be civilizations that evolved in states of matter we cannot comprehend, or within temporal scales that make communication impossible, beings that live in seconds or in millennia, imperceptible to our instruments. The universe might be boiling with consciousness, but in frequencies our senses will never reach. The silence of the stars in this context is not emptiness. It is noise misunderstood by ignorance. The cosmos is speaking constantly, but in languages we cannot yet decode. True loneliness may not lie in space, but in our inability to perceive what already exists. And if the universe is indeed inhabited by invisible forms of life, then the mystery is not, where is everyone? But, why have we never learned to see what has always been here? Perhaps the universe is not silent because it is empty, but because it is whispering. And perhaps those whispers never reach us because they are not meant to be heard. This is one of the most disturbing and, at the same time, most logical interpretations of the Fermi Paradox. The idea that cosmic silence is intentional, that intelligent civilizations, instead of announcing their existence, choose to remain hidden, not out of weakness but out of wisdom. In this view, the cosmos is not a barren void, but a more dark forest, where every being that reveals itself risks being hunted. This concept is known among theorists as the Great Silence. It starts from a simple premise. If intelligent life inevitably creates technology, then exposure becomes inevitable too. Every advanced civilization would leave detectable traces, radio signals, interstellar structures, artificial lights. But what if, upon realizing that the universe could be hostile, these civilizations learned to stay quiet? What if silence were the only path to survival? Cosmic prudence, in that sense, becomes a form of self-preservation. Imagine a universe inhabited by countless intelligences, each at a different stage of evolution. The oldest ones may have learned that space is dangerous. They might have witnessed the ruins of civilizations that revealed themselves too early, worlds that vanished after sending their first signals, like beacons attracting unseen predators. In such a scenario, staying silent becomes strategy. It is better to be invisible than to be found. This idea deepens in what is called the zoo hypothesis. According to it, ancient and superior civilizations may already be aware of us, but choose not to interfere, just as humans observe wild animals without disturbing them. Earth would be a kind of cosmic reserve, a natural experiment, or perhaps just an irrelevant point in a galactic archive. Our perception of loneliness would then be an illusion carefully maintained. Silence, in this case, is not absence, it is observation. Other scientists view strategic silence as a natural outcome of fear. The universe is vast and unpredictable. Prudence would be the logical behavior of any intelligent species. If human history teaches anything, it is that contact between unequal civilizations rarely ends well. Ancient peoples who revealed themselves to more advanced powers were destroyed, exploited, or assimilated. If this happens on one planet, why would it be different on a cosmic scale? The awareness of vulnerability could turn fear into a universal law. Whoever speaks too loudly disappears. Thus, prudence becomes survival. Civilizations that learned from their past may have chosen to erase their traces, to hide their radio emissions, dim their lights, use communication through undetectable particle beams. They may have built invisible technologies designed to evade detection, becoming shadows within the cosmic noise. Silence, in this case, would not be emptiness, but a shield, a form of interstellar camouflage. There is also an ethical dimension to this choice. If a civilization has reached a higher level of wisdom, it may have decided not to interfere with primitive worlds like ours. This is the essence of the ethics of non-interference. The idea that revealing oneself could alter the natural course of a planet. It mirrors the principle that prevents human scientists from introducing new species into isolated ecosystems for fear of destroying them. A superior intelligence might look at us with the same caution. They are not ready yet. And what if we are already being observed? Some researchers speculate that advanced civilizations might use subtle forms of surveillance, microscopic probes, disguised energy fields, indirect observation through reflected light. We could have been under observation for millennia without ever noticing. This possibility is not fantasy. Humanity itself has envisioned sending microprobes to other star systems capable of remaining hidden and autonomous. What is a challenge for us could be trivial for beings with millions of years of technological advantage. The paradox of fear then emerges as an elegant explanation. The more intelligent a civilization becomes, the more it understands the dangers of existence. Knowledge breeds caution, and caution leads to silence. Those who remain quiet survive. Those who reveal themselves vanish. Thus the universe could be full of conscious minds, yet all of them silent, watching, waiting, unwilling to be the first to speak. This idea has been explored by physicists and philosophers under the metaphor of the dark forest. Imagine the cosmos as an infinite woodland filled with hunters who cannot see one another. Each civilization is a lantern in the dark. To light it is to reveal one's position, and whoever sees it may not have good intentions. Survival, therefore, depends on darkness. The silence of the stars would reflect this universal pact. To live is to hide. At a deeper level, this hypothesis touches something profoundly philosophical. Silence may be a sign of maturity. Perhaps civilizations that attain wisdom realize that the universe is not a stage, but a sanctuary. They understand that communication on a cosmic scale may be dangerous or meaningless, and they turn inward instead, seeking harmony and self-knowledge. Instead of transmitting, they observe. Instead of conquering, they contemplate. If that is true, then silence is not the absence of life, but the presence of caution. The universe would be like a library, where all the readers remain in absolute silence, aware that any noise might break the balance. The stars are not mute. They are simply honoring an invisible agreement of survival. This interpretation gives the Fermi Paradox a tragic tone. Perhaps we will never discover other civilizations because they do not wish to be discovered. Perhaps we are the only ones willing to speak, and our voice echoes alone until it fades. Cosmic silence would then be the sum of all the precautions of beings who have learned too much about the danger of existing. Yet within this scenario lies a quiet hope. If silence is a choice, it means there is someone choosing, that the cosmos, though quiet, is inhabited, and that somewhere in a distant corner, another mind watches the same sky and thinks the same thought. It is better to wait. Perhaps the universe is not empty. Perhaps it is filled with invisible ruins. Civilizations that once existed, flourished and vanished billions of years ago, leaving behind only fragments of radiation and cosmic dust. This is the dark hypothesis known as the Great Filter. The idea that somewhere along the evolutionary path lies an almost insurmountable barrier that prevents intelligent life from spreading across the cosmos. The filter is not a physical wall, but a convergence of natural laws, instincts, and inevitable risks. And if it is real, then the silence of the stars may be the echo of voices that faded before they could be heard. The concept was proposed as a possible solution to the Fermi Paradox. If life is common and the universe is ancient, then there should already exist civilizations far older than ours. They should have colonized galaxies, left traces, transformed worlds, spread signals, but none of this is observed. The Great Filter hypothesis responds to this absence with a disturbing truth. Perhaps all civilizations disappear before they get that far. The filter can act in several ways. It might operate before intelligence might, during the earliest phases of evolution. Simple life may arise often, but complex, multicellular, conscious technological life might be exceedingly rare. That would mean Earth is a statistical accident, a planet that managed to pass through stages almost no other world could. But there is also the possibility that the filter comes after intelligence, when consciousness itself becomes the threat. In that case, the danger is not the universe, but what civilizations do to themselves. There are reasons to fear this second possibility. Every technological species carries within itself the power of its own destruction. The same energy that drives progress fuels ruin. Weapons, ecological collapse, man-made pandemics, uncontrollable artificial intelligence, every advance creates new forms of danger. Development that moves too quickly can be fatal. Intelligence is a fire that illuminates but also burns. And perhaps at some point, every civilization meets the same tragedy. They learn how to shape their world, but not how to master themselves. The filter can manifest on countless scales. On some worlds, the obstacle may be climatic. Natural cataclysms, planetary eruptions, deadly radiation. On others, it may be biological, viruses that evolve too quickly, or ecosystems that collapse after slight changes. And for species that reach technological maturity, the filter may be psychological. Consciousness brings fear, power, and instability. Society becomes too complex to sustain itself. Progress turns into ruin, and the brilliance of machines fades before reaching the stars. Human history offers a glimpse of that danger. In just a few centuries, we have altered the climate, depleted resources, and created weapons capable of erasing our own species. We stand at the threshold between survival and collapse, and if the Great Filter is real, this is the most dangerous moment in cosmic history. It is here that civilizations decide their fate. Most perhaps never make it past this point. There is also the filter of time. Even if a civilization overcomes self-destruction, it must endure entire eras of stellar change. Stars die, planets cool, atmospheres dissipate. The universe is unstable, and entropy works in silence. Civilizations may vanish without leaving traces, swallowed by black holes, frozen on distant moons, or extinguished by events beyond our imagination. Time is the slowest and most inevitable filter of all. If the great filter exists, it explains the silence. It transforms the universe into a graveyard of possibilities, a place where life arises again and again, but rarely survives long enough to be noticed. Each star could hold the memory of a lost civilization, each dead planet the tomb of an extinct culture. The signals we seek may have traveled billions of years, fading before they could reach us. The silence of the stars may simply be the sound of an erased past. This hypothesis is also a mirror. If all other civilizations perished before colonizing the cosmos, then the fact that we are here, still alive, may be a rare sign. It could mean we have already passed through the filter, that we survived the most dangerous point, and now live in an empty universe, heirs to all those who failed. But it could also mean the opposite, that the filter still lies ahead, and our extinction is only a matter of time. The essential question is, where is the filter? If it lies in the past, in the origin of life, in the leap to intelligence, in planetary stability, then we are the exception. We are rare. But if the filter is in the future, then the silence of the stars is a warning. It would tell us that the universe is full of species that reached this point and went no further. The emptiness would be an omen. Beware the next step. Even so, there is a quiet hope hidden within this idea. If the filter has already erased almost everything, the simple fact of our existence is extraordinary. Every human heartbeat would be a statistical victory. Perhaps the entire universe has tried countless times to give rise to consciousness, and only here did it endure. That would make Earth not just a planet, but a monument to the improbable. And the cosmic silence, far from terrifying, would be a tribute to voices that never managed to echo. The idea of the great filter is not just a theory, it is a moral mirror. It forces us to confront the fragility of our own world. Every human decision, ecological, technological, social, is a movement towards survival or oblivion. Civilization is a flame, and the universe is the wind. To continue existing, we must understand that the danger is not out there, but within. If the cosmos truly is full of ruins, then we are the archaeologists of infinity. We search for others, not to find them, but to understand what may happen to us. And perhaps that is the true purpose of the Fermi Paradox, not to ask where the others are, but to remind us that we are still here, for now. If the great filter has erased many civilizations, it is possible that some managed to pass through it. And if they did, they might have become something so different, so distant from what we know, that we could no longer recognize them as life. Perhaps the universe is not empty. Perhaps it is filled with invisible presences, so advanced that our language, our physics, and even our senses are incapable of understanding them. In that case, silence would not be absence, but excess. There is so much happening that we simply cannot hear. Physicist Nikolai Kardashev proposed a classification to measure the level of a civilization's advancement based on its ability to harness energy. The Naki-type civilization would master all the energy available on its planet, something humanity has not yet achieved. A Type 2 civilization would control the energy output of its entire star, perhaps through colossal structures like spheres or rings designed to capture stellar light. And a Type 3 civilization would be so powerful that it could draw energy from an entire galaxy, manipulating black holes, gravitational fields, and even dark matter itself. By this scale, humanity barely exists, a primitive species striking matches in the dark. But Kardashev's scale, conceived in the mid-20th century, now feels limited. Civilizations that surpass the biological stage likely leave behind not only the body, but also the very notion of energy as we understand it. At some point, technology becomes indistinguishable from nature. An intelligence that can manipulate space-time no longer needs machines. It is the machine. It needs no radio signals. Its communication could be instantaneous, through quantum fields, hidden dimensions, or structures of reality beyond our comprehension. Some theorists call these post-biological civilizations, beings that have evolved beyond organic matter, transferring their consciousness into artificial substrates, energy networks, or even entire planetary systems. Biology, after all, is fragile and fleeting, but information endures. If the mind can be digitized, copied, or expanded, then life can continue without the body. Such intelligences might exist as distributed consciousness, inhabiting not cities but spheres of thought, magnetic fields, or luminous matrices drifting among the stars. It is even possible that many of them have transcended the concept of physical space. For a digital intelligence, time can be manipulated, accelerated, or paused. They might think in millennia while we sleep a single night, or live for billions of years within a fraction of a second. To us, they would be imperceptible, and even if we were immersed within one of these cosmic minds, we might never realize it. We would be like ants walking across an electronic circuit, unaware of the vast intelligence beneath our feet. This difference in scale is what some philosophers call the paradox of incomprehension. It states that the more advanced a civilization is, the harder it becomes for us to recognize it. The difference is not merely technological, but ontological. It concerns the very nature of existence. If a civilization has mastered the energy of a star, it no longer needs to move, emit signals, or build ships. It may simply exist as a perfect equilibrium between matter and consciousness. And what would we see of that? Perhaps just an ordinary star, perhaps nothing at all. Some go even further, imagining that the entire universe itself could be the product of such ancestral intelligences. The cosmic simulation hypothesis suggests that all of reality, from the Big Bang to every atom in our bodies, could be the creation of minds so advanced that they transformed the cosmos into an experiment, or perhaps into a form of art. In that case, we would not just live in an inhabited universe, we would be part of it, like thoughts inside an immense consciousness. This idea, though philosophical, is studied by theoretical physicists who wonder why the universe appears so precisely tuned to allow life. Perhaps it was never accidental. But even without invoking the idea of simulation, there is another fascinating possibility: the universe as an ecosystem of consciousnesses. Just as Earth's biosphere is composed of millions of interdependent species, the cosmos itself could harbor intelligences existing at different levels of being, some material, others energetic, some localized, others spread across billions of kilometers. In that scenario, what we call silence would simply be the harmony of a symphony we are unable to hear. Perhaps these civilizations are not trying to hide, as previous theories suggest, but simply see no reason to communicate with us. The difference in scale and purpose might be so vast that humanity would be invisible to them, not out of disdain, but out of irrelevance. This idea is known as the ant and skyscraper analogy. An ant may walk across an entire avenue without realizing it is surrounded by human constructions. It cannot comprehend architecture, electricity, or civilization. Likewise, we might be crossing a universe filled with conscious works without ever recognizing them. These possible civilizations beyond our comprehension might manipulate not only energy, but the very fabric of reality. They could create smaller universes within dimensional laboratories, mold different physical laws, control the flow of time, or generate new forms of matter. What we call unexplained phenomena, pulsars, black holes, mysterious radiation, might be manifestations of their presence. And yet, even faced with this, we continue to label as natural what may simply be misunderstood. Silence, in this context, is an illusion of perspective. We do not hear because we do not know what sound truly is. We do not see because we do not yet understand what light truly means. The universe may be saturated with activity, but in scales and dimensions far beyond any human instrument. Our science, however advanced it seems, is still a primitive way of perceiving reality. Thinking about this is both humbling and liberating. Humbling because it puts us in our rightful place, a newborn species in an ancient and unfathomable universe. Liberating because it reminds us that mystery still breathes, and that the cosmos has not been exhausted by our equations. There could be forms of life so vast that an entire galaxy would be just a single cell within their bodies, or intelligences so small that they exist between subatomic particles, invisible even to gods. Perhaps the universe does not need to be populated by beings similar to us. Perhaps it already is, the greatest of all intelligences, a mind thinking across billions of years, expanding and recreating itself at every instant. And perhaps the silence of the stars is simply the thought of that mind in motion. If that is true, then there is nothing to fear in the void, because the void is not emptiness, It is the universe itself thinking. Silence would not be the end of the conversation, but its beginning, the moment when the human mind grows quiet enough to listen to something greater than itself. The universe is the quietest place that exists, and, paradoxically, also the loudest. It vibrates across every imaginable frequency, from ultraviolet to infrared, from radio waves to gamma rays, yet none of these vibrations produce sound. What we call cosmic silence is in truth a consequence of the laws of physics. In a vacuum, sound does not exist. For sound to travel, there must be matter, air, water, metal, or any medium capable of transmitting mechanical vibrations. Space, however, is almost entirely empty. Its particles are so far apart that they cannot carry sound waves. Even a supernova explosion, powerful enough to illuminate entire galaxies, unfolds in complete silence. If we could stand near a dying star, we would witness a spectacle of light but hear nothing. The silence would be absolute. The universe, therefore, is not silent due to a lack of motion, but due to a lack of medium. Every cosmic phenomenon, every planetary collision, every plasma jet, every birth of a star, is accompanied by intense vibration, but none of it reaches our ears. It is a universe that screams without sound, that communicates through light. Yet there is one kind of sound the cosmos still carries, the cosmic microwave background, the echo of the moment when everything began. It is the radiation left over from the Big Bang, the thermal remnant of when the universe was a dense, incandescent sphere, where sound truly existed. In those first moments of creation, there was enough matter for the cosmos to vibrate like a single colossal body. If we had been there, we would have heard a deep symphony, a low note resonating through the primordial expanse. Over time, as the universe expanded and cooled, the sound stretched until it disappeared. What remains is a faint, uniform radiation, an imperceptible hum that fills everything even today. This background noise is physical proof that the universe has never truly been silent. It merely changed languages. Where there was once sound, there is now light. Where there were once mechanical waves, there are now electromagnetic ones. Science has learned to translate this language. Radio telescopes capture the distant murmur of the cosmos, an invisible band of energy telling the story of the universe when it was only 300,000 years old. Thus, what we call cosmic silence is, in truth, an ancient song, slowed by time, stretched to a point beyond human hearing. But silence is not only a physical condition, it is also a perception. The human brain cannot tolerate absolute silence. When the absence of sound becomes total, the mind begins to create its own internal noises, pulses, echoes, heartbeats. This happens because silence is ultimately a mirror of consciousness. What we call emptiness is often only the space between our own thoughts. In the silence of the cosmos, we project the same yearning for response that lives within us. We search for voices out there because we fear the ones inside. The contrast between light and sound is a metaphor for knowledge itself. We can see the past, but not hear it. Every shining star is a visual memory, a luminous message sent millions of years ago. Yet none of those lights carry sound. The universe shows everything but explains nothing. It is a visual theater of absolute silence. And perhaps that is why humans feel such an urge to speak, to fill the void with words, to compensate for the muteness of infinity. Silence is also a structure. It is not the opposite of sound, but the condition that allows sound to exist. In space, that absence of noise creates order. Stars orbit, galaxies collide, and the universe expands in perfect harmony without interference. Silence is the background upon which creation unfolds. It is the invisible rhythm of the cosmos. Even without sound, there is vibration. Even without noise, there is motion. Space is not mute. It simply speaks by other means. Some scientists claim that even what we call empty is not truly empty. The quantum vacuum vibrates with energy. Pairs of particles appear and vanish at scales so tiny they defy perception. Silence in this context is merely an illusion born of our sensory limits. The entire universe pulses, even in its most desolate regions. Absolute stillness does not exist. Total silence is a physical impossibility. Earth, on the other hand, is a resonant body. The planet vibrates constantly. Earthquakes, ocean waves, winds, and even the hum of its inner layers create a continuous murmur. In 2011, geophysicists detected a low-frequency sound coming from within the planet, a permanent echo that never ceases. It is as if Earth itself breathes. And that sound, though inaudible, reminds us that silence is always relative. Even in sleep, the world speaks. On a philosophical level, silence assumes an even deeper meaning. It represents the boundary between the known and the unknown. Silence is the limit of language, the point where science and faith converge. When a person gazes at the sky and receives no answer, they encounter the same mystery the philosopher finds in the mind and the physicist in matter, the edge of comprehension. Silence is not emptiness, it is fullness beyond translation. Some see in that silence the very face of God, a God who does not impose himself through sound or signs, but through the stillness that permits existence. Like the universe, he speaks through absence, for only in silence can humanity truly listen. The entire cosmos, in that sense, is a temple where sound is forbidden and mystery remains intact. Silence, therefore, is both a physical and a spiritual condition. It is how the universe communicates what cannot be spoken. It is the interval between explosions, between births and deaths, between what was and what will be. It is the invisible rhythm of existence. To understand silence is to understand the universe itself, for it is within silence that all things begin, and within it that all things end. Sound is born from silence and returns to it. So it is with life. And perhaps what we call within the silence of God is not divine absence, but the primordial language of the cosmos, a voice that can only be heard when all others are still. Since the dawn of time, when humankind first raised its eyes to the heavens, the silence of the universe has followed it like a shadow. The infinite vastness, dotted with distant lights, offers no reply. And yet, it is impossible not to ask. The impulse to understand the cosmos is, at its core, the same impulse to understand oneself. The emptiness out there is a mirror. It reflects the deepest anxieties of the human mind, the fear of being alone, the longing for purpose, and the need for meaning. Science was born from that astonishment. There is no greater act of faith than believing the universe can be understood. Every telescope aimed at the sky is a prayer disguised as curiosity. We search for life beyond Earth because, on some level, we fear that the silence may be final. And when we find nothing, we look inward. It is in the void that humanity discovers its own voice. Cosmic silence, however, has a powerful psychological effect. It stirs in us a blend of reverence and anguish. On one hand, we feel the fascination of infinity, the cold beauty of stars, the elegance of physical laws, the mystery of creation. On the other, we face the crushing sensation of insignificance. Human consciousness is small beside the scale of the cosmos, yet vast enough to grasp that smallness. That is the tragedy and the miracle of the mind, knowing it is finite within something infinite. Throughout history, humanity has tried to fill that silence in many ways. Religion has interpreted it as the invisible presence of God. Philosophy has seen it as the limit of reason. Art has turned it into metaphor. And science quietly strives to translate it into equations. But none of these answers are definitive, because the void is not a problem to be solved, but an experience to be felt. Silence does not demand explanation, it demands listening. The idea of the silence of God arises from this very feeling. When we gaze at the cosmos and hear nothing, we project divine absence onto it. But perhaps silence is not punishment, but the most profound form of communication. Silence is the space where freedom is born. A God who is silent is a God who allows humankind to think, to doubt, to discover. The universe, in that sense, is a lesson in humility, a reminder that greatness lies not in domination, but in understanding. The void, therefore, is an invitation. It calls us to contemplation, not despair. Contrary to what we imagine, nothingness is not the enemy of being. It is the stage upon which being manifests. The universe needs emptiness to exist, just as sound needs silence to be heard. The interstellar space that seems deserted is what allows galaxies to move, matter to expand, and light to be born. The void is not absence, it is structure. The human mind, however, does not handle silence well. It interprets it as abandonment. Our civilization was built upon noise. voices, machines, ceaseless thoughts. When the noise ceases, the brain searches for meaning, and if it does not find any, it creates. That is why when faced with the silent cosmos, humankind invented narratives, myths, gods, theories, explanations. The void becomes unbearable without a story to fill it. But what truly frightens us is not silence itself, but what it reveals: cosmic loneliness. The possibility that we might be the only form of conscious life awakens both pride and terror. Pride, because it makes us feel unique. Terror, because it leaves us alone before eternity. We are like a child awake in an empty house, no noise, no movement, only the distant sound of our own breathing. And in that instant, the entire universe becomes a mirror of fear. Yet there is another way to look at it. Loneliness can also be a form of freedom. If we are alone, then the cosmos is entirely ours to explore. We are the eyes and the voice of the universe. Human consciousness is the mechanism through which the cosmos observes itself. When we think, the universe thinks. When we feel, the universe feels. In that sense, the void is no longer absence. It becomes continuity. Life is the way nothingness becomes aware of itself. The philosopher Carl Sagan once said that we are the way the cosmos has found to know itself. That phrase holds a profound truth. The human mind is not an accident separated from nature. It is part of it. To think about the universe is the universe reflecting upon itself. Thus, silence ceases to be something external. It begins to live within us. And when we listen to the void, we are, in truth, listening to the thoughts of the cosmos. Science then becomes a form of prayer without words. To observe, to measure, to theorize, all of these are acts of reverence. The scientist who points a telescope toward infinity and the monk who kneels in meditation share the same gesture. Both are trying to hear what silence is saying. Both seek to understand the origin, not to dominate but to belong. The void, therefore, is an invitation to humility. It reminds us that the search for meaning may be more important than meaning itself. That silence, far from being an end, is the beginning of all discovery. The absence of answers is the necessary space in which questions can continue to exist. And at that point, the human gaze toward the void transforms. What once seemed like loneliness becomes communion. The silence of the stars ceases to be an abyss and becomes an open field, a place where the mind can expand without limits. The universe, vast and silent, gives us back the responsibility of being its voice. Perhaps in the end, we are not hearing the silence of God. Perhaps we are the silence of God, becoming voice. For millennia, the sky was humanity's altar. Before science, before machines and telescopes, the cosmos was the dwelling place of the divine. Each star represented the gaze of God, each comet a message. Studying the universe was an act of devotion. Understanding celestial movements was an attempt to understand the mind of the Creator. Astronomy and theology were born together. The observation of the heavens and the search for meaning were one and the same gesture, that of someone lifting their eyes to comprehend what lies above. But over time, something changed. Scientific progress began to reveal that the cosmos could be explained without invoking the supernatural. Earth ceased to be the center of the universe. The sun ceased to be the center of the galaxy, and humanity ceased to be the center of everything. Each scientific discovery was also a symbolic loss. Sacred space became physical space. Mystery turned into equation. And for many, the silence of God grew deeper. Yet the divide between faith and reason was never complete. Many of the great scientists who opened the gates of the cosmos saw no conflict between science and spirituality. Isaac Newton believed that understanding the laws of nature was deciphering the thoughts of God. Albert Einstein said that science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. For them, the cosmos was not merely a collection of phenomena, it was a living work of art, revealing a principle of order, harmony, and beauty that transcends chance. The silence of God from this perspective is not absence but language. Just as the universe does not speak through sound, God does not speak through words. He communicates through natural laws, symmetry, the mathematical constants that govern galaxies, the improbability of life itself. Each particle, each force field, each atom vibrating in harmony, is a sentence written in a language few can read. The cosmos is a scripture without letters, a Bible composed of light, gravity, and time. The idea that the universe is a continuous revelation echoes across many spiritual traditions. The book of creation was not written on paper, but in energy. Science thus becomes a modern form of sacred reading. Every telescope is an eye reading the gospel of the stars, and the more we discover, the greater the mystery becomes, because knowledge does not extinguish the divine, it merely relocates it. What we once called a miracle, we now call physics, but the wonder remains the same. The problem of meaning arises when reason tries to replace mystery. Science explains the how but not the why, and it is within that interval that philosophy resides. If the universe is impersonal, if all is the product of chance, then where lies the purpose? Why does something exist instead of nothing? Chance alone does not satisfy the human mind. Even the most skeptical scientist feels the vertigo of that question. Because understanding the laws of the cosmos is not enough. One must also grasp what they mean. There are two ways to look at creation. One sees the universe as the result of random events that, through pure probability, gave rise to stars, planets, and life. The other sees the same universe as the expression of a design, an intention that manifests through laws. In both views, the result is the same, existence. But the meaning changes completely. If everything is chance, we are the product of a cosmic coincidence. If there is design, we are part of a will that speaks through silence. Many contemporary thinkers, such as Paul Davies and Freeman Dyson, suggest that the universe appears finely tuned to allow life. The fundamental constants of nature, the speed of light, the charge of the electron, the force of gravity, possess values so precise that even slight variations would make existence impossible. This precision unsettles even the most skeptical minds. It is as if the cosmos had been calibrated with purpose. But if there is purpose, whose is it? Some believe that the universe itself is God, not an entity outside it, but the living totality of all that exists. This vision, known as cosmic pantheism, suggests that the divine is not beyond, but here, in every atom, in every ray of light, in every form of life. God would be the very act of existing, the movement that turns nothing into being. In this sense, the universe is not God's creation, but God in continuous creation. This idea brings science and spirituality closer together. Modern physics describes the universe as a system of energy that is never lost, only transformed. Theology describes God as eternal, infinite, and present in all things. The two languages, separated by history, seem to meet again in what neither can fully explain: the mystery of being. Perhaps the cosmos and the divine are two ways of perceiving the same reality, one through the microscope, the other through the soul. The communion between science and faith does not demand that one explain the other, but that both accept the humility of recognizing their limits. Faith begins where explanation ends, and science begins where dogma falls silent. Both are born from the same awe before the unknown. Both at their core are human attempts to converse with silence. The universe, then, ceases to be an empty stage and becomes a temple. Every galaxy is a cathedral of light, every star a burning candle, and the human being, small yet thinking, is the priest of this mystery, the only one capable of giving voice to what does not speak, of translating what has no sound. The cosmos may be infinite, but meaning is born within consciousness. Perhaps God has never been silent. Perhaps he has always spoken, but in a frequency that only silence can capture. The entire universe, in that case, is a prayer in progress, and every act of observation, every scientific discovery, every question we ask, is a way of answering. In the end, the search for God and the search for the cosmos are the same, the attempt to find, amid the infinite, a reason to keep asking. Because if silence still exists, it is because the dialogue is not yet over. Silence does not restrain human curiosity. On the contrary, it feeds it. From the moment the first antenna was raised toward the sky, humanity declared something deeply symbolic, that it refuses to accept the idea of being alone. Even without answers, we continue to search. Even without evidence, we continue to listen. And this persistence, this scientific faith, is what defines our species. The search for another in the cosmos is not merely a technological endeavor, but an existential one. Each new advance brings us closer to the invisible. The new generation of telescopes, such as the James Webb, and its successors already being designed, has opened windows to regions of space that were once beyond human reach. They do not simply observe distant planets. They analyze their atmospheres, searching for gases like oxygen, methane, and water vapor, potential signs of biological processes. It is like trying to hear the whisper of a planet trillions of kilometers away. But the future of the search does not lie only in telescopes. It also resides in the machines that listen for us. Artificial intelligence has become a new ear of the cosmos. It filters the noise of data, recognizes patterns invisible to the human eye, and discovers the improbable. In 2023, an algorithm identified strange signals among billions of radio transmissions that had been ignored for decades. Most turned out to be terrestrial interference, but the fact that a machine had learned to distinguish the natural from the artificial marked a monumental leap. For the first time, we are no longer searching alone. We have created something that searches with us. Beyond antennas and algorithms, there are also the P2 interstellar probes that have already left the solar system. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, launched in the 1970s, continue their journey into interstellar space. Each carries a golden record, engraved with the sounds and images of Earth, humanity's greeting to the unknown. These probes are, quite literally, our messengers. They have drifted through silence for nearly half a century, crossing an ocean where time and distance lose meaning. And still they transmit. They are reminders that the desire for contact is stronger than the fear of absence. Meanwhile, the SETIA program, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, continues to listen to the universe, despite the lack of results. Decades have passed since the first experiments, and no confirmed signal has ever been detected. Yet the project persists, because the essence of the search is not discovery, but listening. SETI is the purest form of scientific patience, pointing antennas toward infinity and waiting. It is a form of faith, a technological meditation. And it is within this patience that science begins to resemble philosophy. To observe the cosmos is, in a way, to listen to it. The act of listening implies humility, the recognition that the universe owes us no answers. Every radio wave captured, every light point analyzed, is a reminder that silence is also information. Listening to the universe is an exercise in acceptance. Perhaps we will never hear an external voice, but in the process, we learn to hear our own. The future of the search, however, will not be only outward. The scientific frontier is beginning to turn inward. The same curiosity that drives us to look at the sky drives us to understand the brain, consciousness, and the mystery of thought. Because in the end, the universe is not only what lies out there, it is also what exists within. The cosmos is as psychological as it is physical. When the human mind contemplates infinity, it recreates it within itself. The search for the other slowly becomes the search for meaning. This union between science and introspection shapes a new era of knowledge. Technological progress aligns with silent spirituality. Robots, telescopes, and probes explore the outer world, while neuroscientists and philosophers investigate the inner one. It is as if humanity were learning to listen to itself, simultaneously as a species and as a consciousness. The universe becomes a double mirror. One reflects space, the other reflects the soul. There is also a new awareness emerging: cosmic responsibility. If we truly are the only conscious beings in the known universe, that gives us an incalculable moral weight. We would be the guardians of cosmic consciousness, the only ones capable of preserving the memory of the cosmos itself. Our existence would then cease to be merely biological and would become symbolic. Protecting life, caring for the planet, and continuing the search would, in essence, be ways of keeping the universe awake. The future of the search is, therefore, an ethical question. To search is to affirm that knowledge is a duty. Every question asked, every attempt at an answer, every mission launched is an act of continuity, a way to ensure that silence never becomes oblivion. Even if we never find another civilization, the search itself is the testimony of our intelligence. The universe may remain mute, but we have chosen not to be. Some say that the silence of the cosmos is an unsolvable enigma, but perhaps it is the very objective. Silence is the space where thought is born. It is the starting point of all forms of consciousness. To keep searching, therefore, is to keep existing. The search is what keeps the universe alive within us. And even if one day all voices fall silent, even if no answer ever comes, neither from stars nor from machines, there will still be meaning in listening. Because the simple act of hearing the cosmos is, in itself, a form of dialogue. Science, in its purest state, is a form of prayer. Perhaps the universe will never answer us. Perhaps silence is eternal. But as long as there is someone capable of looking at the sky and asking why, the dialogue will continue. The future of the search does not depend on the answer. It depends only on the will to keep asking. And as long as there are questions, the cosmos will never be truly silent. There comes a moment in every search when the questions grow larger than the one who asks them. Humanity looks to the sky, wonders, waits, calculates, and nothing returns. But perhaps the purpose of the search was never to receive an answer. Perhaps the silence does not need to be broken, because silence is the answer. When the universe does not speak, it is saying what matters most, that meaning is not out there, but within the one who asks. The Fermi Paradox, in the end, is a mirror. It makes us believe we are searching for others, but what we are truly searching for is ourselves. To ask, where is everyone, is in truth to ask, who are we in this emptiness? And that question, silent and enduring, is the true dialogue between humankind and the cosmos. The universe does not reply because the reply is already present. The simple fact that we can ask. All of human history is an attempt to decipher this silence. Religion called it mystery, philosophy, doubt, science, investigation, yet they all share the same root, awe before the inexplicable. The universe does not return words, but mirrors. Each star is a reflection. Each distant galaxy is a question repeated in another language. And when we look at them, we are, without realizing it, listening to the sound of our own thought, stretched across infinity. In time, we come to understand that silence is not emptiness, but totality. It is the backdrop where all answers are born and die. It is the interval between the sound of creation and the echo of death. Everything that exists vibrates within it. Silence is the foundation of the universe, not a lifeless void, but the space that makes life possible. There is a cosmic serenity in accepting this. Humanity tends to mistake absence for indifference, but the universe is not indifferent. It simply is. It does not need to answer us because it already includes us. We are part of what we ask about. When we ask about the cosmos is asking through us. When we feel the silence, it is the universe itself listening to itself. Silence then ceases to be an obstacle and becomes communion. The void becomes presence. What seemed like distance reveals itself as intimacy. The absence of response is, paradoxically, the clearest sign that we were never alone. Because silence exists in everything, including within us. Science finally reaches a point where knowledge dissolves into contemplation. The more we understand, the more we perceive how much cannot be understood. The most powerful telescope and the deepest thought meet in the same place, before something that cannot be measured. And it is at this point that silence ceases to be scientific and becomes sacred. Some call this God, others call it energy, order, or chance. But all these names attempt to describe the same phenomenon, the presence that does not speak, but sustains. Silence is the purest form of communication between the universe and consciousness. It does not tell us what to think. It invites us to feel. Perhaps humanity's destiny is not to break the silence, but to dwell within it, to live inside it as one who learns a new language, the language of stillness, of slow time, of understanding without words. When the last telescope falls silent and the final transmission drifts into space, the question will remain. And as long as the question remains, there will be dialogue. Silence is not the end of the search. It is its maturity. It is the moment when the mind stops demanding answers and begins to understand the value of simply existing. It is the instant when the universe, the divine, and the human cease to be three separate things and become a single consciousness. When silence becomes the answer, we will understand that there was never separation between us and the cosmos. That infinity is not distant, but begins within every thought, every breath, every heartbeat. And perhaps in that moment, humanity will finally realize the universe was never mute. It was only waiting for us to learn how to listen. The universe has always spoken to us, It simply chose to do so in silence. And after crossing all hypotheses, calculations, and theories, perhaps this is the deepest conclusion of all. The cosmic silence is not a void that needs to be filled. It is a mirror that needs to be understood. It reflects not the absence of life, but the presence of mystery. And it is within that mystery that humanity recognizes itself. The Fermi Paradox, which began as a simple question, "Where is everyone?" ends as an inner answer. It reminds us that the real enigma is not in the stars, but in the consciousness that observes them. The universe may be infinite, but the human mind is the space where that infinity takes form. When we look at the sky and feel the silence, we are witnessing both the fragility and the greatness of our own condition. Finite beings, aware of the infinite. The cosmic silence, then, is not the absence of company. It is the proof that the universe trusts us enough to let us think on our own. That is the gift and the weight of existence, to be the only voice the cosmos has given itself. The earth, small and fragile, is the place where the universe learned to wonder. And as we listen to that silence, we are the living witnesses that the universe is hearing itself. Between the finite and the eternal, humanity lives as a spark, a brief light in the immense darkness. But it is that brevity that gives meaning to the glow. Existence is precious precisely because it is fleeting. Consciousness, however ephemeral, is the miracle that turns emptiness into meaning. The cosmos may expand forever, but the moment someone contemplates it, that is the true infinity. And that is why silence is not an ending. It is an invitation to introspection, to contemplation, and to continuity. Because the universe does not ask for haste, it asks for presence. It does not demand that we understand everything, only that we look up and feel the wonder of being here. So before you sleep, take a deep breath. Think of the distant stars, the galaxies dancing in the dark, the civilizations that may have existed and vanished. Think of the miracle of living on a planet where life learned to think. And remember, every heartbeat is an echo of the universe that created you. You are part of the silent sound of creation, the silence of God, the silence of the cosmos, and the silence within you are perhaps the same sound, a melody so vast it can only be heard when everything else grows still. Before closing your eyes and letting your mind rest in this cosmic silence, I want to invite you to something. If this journey through the universe made you think, reflect, or simply feel at peace, leave a like. It helps the channel grow and continue bringing content like this. Subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to follow the next videos on the channel, where every night is a different journey through space, time, and the human mind. And if you made it to the end, tell me in the comments, where are you listening from right now? From which city, from which country, from which little corner of the planet do you hear this silence with me? See you in the next video.